But what if you went driving to the store in God's car? And you went shopping with God's money, and you bought God's goods, and you come out and you realize that God's car is missing. Well, who has a problem now? Well, God has a problem, because it was his car. Does he know where it is? Sure, he knows where it is. Does he know who took it? Yes, he knows who took it. Did he give them power and life and capabilities and so on while they were in the process of taking it? Yes, he did. And did God already know it would happen long ago? Yes, he did. And does he have a plan for how to take care of it now? Yes, he does. Do you know what that plan is? No, you don't. And that's our problem, is when we're in the midst of the situation and we don't know how God plans to fix it yet. He who receives but never gives soon ceases to receive. If the truth does not flow from him to others, he loses his capacity to receive. We must impart the goods of heaven if we would receive fresh blessings. That's true. At the beginning, when you come to God, you take a little bit, and you only have a little bit to give. It's like a coffee straw. But over time, the capacity is you come to if you give more, you can take more. And if you take more, you can give more. And if you give more, you can take more. And if you take more, you can give more. And all that is not devoted to God's service is counted on Satan's side and goes to strengthen his cause. So, we must truly question, where are the resources? Are we having the resources on God's side, or are the resources on Satan's side? And you might think, well, I'm holding on to these resources because I have some good plans for way off in the future. Well, you don't have way off in the future. And there are needs now. So consider the needs that are now, and God's ability to supply for your needs in the future. Now that's in this life, in the context of sin and death and so on. Every stewardship that we have has a beginning and an end. And Job recognized the true purpose, the true issue. Naked I came into this world. When I was born, I had nothing. And naked shall I return. When I die, I'm not taking anything with me. The Lord gave. I have it because the Lord gave it to me. And the Lord has taken away. It's time for the stewardship to end. Blessed be the name of the Lord. How blessed be the name of the Lord? Because I didn't have it at the beginning, I wouldn't have it at the end. Friends, welcome to another episode of Truth for Life. It's my pleasure to walk with you to freedom and to healing. Today, we are going to be looking at the topic of stewardship versus ownership. And this is a topic that's included by request. And we recently were sharing this at another church, and they thought it was quite transformative and individuals' lives changing already within less than a week. So let's dive in. Again, we have the fundamental law. We need to evaluate everything according to law. We need to have a standard that we evaluate everything by to see whether it fits or whether it doesn't fit. That we can take our estimate and compare it with and see if it matches. And if it doesn't match, we can discard our estimate and we can take that of the measure. The fundamental law, again, tells us that nothing exists or functions from itself, meaning that everything is dependent upon something outside of itself in order to exist, function, or live. It requires power. It requires materials. It requires resources. It requires these different things in order for that to happen, but nothing exists or functions for itself. So everything takes in that power, material, and resources and passes it along to others, and others are benefited by that. So everything takes in order to give. And everything takes in order to give. And so therefore, everything in creation functions as a channel. It takes from one place and it gives to another place. The entrance, it has an entrance on one side, an exit on the other side. Its taking is at the entrance, and its giving is at the exit, and cause is at the entrance, and effect is at the exit. And for every channel, the channel produces nothing of its own, because it's simply a channel. A hose doesn't produce the water that goes through it. A riverbed does not produce the water that goes through it. The canal does not produce the things that goes through it. It's just there as the channel for it to go through. And the channel has the water or whatever is going through it while it is in the process of taking and giving. If the process of taking and giving ceases, well, it doesn't have it anymore. And the channel keeps nothing for itself. Everything ultimately is passed along. Now, it may remain there for a while, and the channel might use those things for a while, but it's eventually going to be passed along. James 1:17 tells us, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. This tells us that God is the source of good. Every good gift, every perfect gift. So if it's good or perfect, it came from God. We're also told in Psalm 24 and verse 1, the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. So not only does everything good come from God, but we see that the earth and everything that's in the earth comes from God. 1 Chronicles 29 verse 12 says, both riches and honor come from you, and you reign over all. In your hand is power and might. In your hand it is to make great and to give strength to all. So again, we see that riches come from God. Honor comes from God. Greatness comes from God. And strength comes from God. All of these different qualities and capacities and possessions come from God. 1 Peter 4 and verse 10 tells us, as each one has received a gift, minister it to one another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. We are to we have received from God the good, and now we are to minister it to others. We are taking to give. That's a taking. That's a law of life passage. That's a taking in order to give. We're also told that the spirit of liberality is the spirit of heaven. Christ's self-sacrificing love is revealed upon the cross. That man might be saved, he gave all that he had, and then he gave himself. The cross of Christ appeals to the benevolence of every follower of the blessed Savior. The principle there illustrated is to give. This, carried out in actual benevolence and good works, is the true fruit of the Christian life. The principle of worldlings is get. And thus they expect to secure happiness. But carried out in all its bearings, the fruit is misery and death. Yes, indeed. We were made for taking and giving. We weren't made for getting. And when you are involved in getting, life becomes miserable. Now, let's imagine that you have the opportunity to, let's say that you have a card that gives you a pass to any store, and you can get anything you want from any store for free with that card. And you take that card and you go to this store and that store and that store and that store, and you get stuff for you and more stuff for you and more stuff for you. And eventually you have houses and you have cars and you have recreational vehicles and you have all sorts of things, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of things and all sorts of things. And you just have everything. And you keep getting it for yourself and more for yourself. And you can spend one day in this house and one day in that house and another day in that house and never go back to the same house once again in a year. And you have all sorts of this stuff. What is your life like after a few years? Miserable. Absolutely miserable. Because you weren't created to keep to yourself. People that do that, they're miserable, and oftentimes they take their lives. But what if you had that card and you could go to any store and get anything you wanted to, and when you did, you went and you got something so that you could give to somebody else? And you found somebody who was homeless on the side of the road, and you went and you got food for them, or you took them shopping and you got what they needed, or you went and got a house for them or a car for them, and somebody else needs something and you go get it for them, and somebody else needs something and you go get it for them, and others have needs, and you keep going and getting so that you can supply their needs. What is your life like in a few years? It's fulfilled. It's fulfilled. It's wonderful because you were created to take and to give. And your joy and meaning and purpose comes in the taking and the giving. It's not in the getting. We're told, as we are continually receiving the blessings of God, so are we to be continually giving. Again, this is a law of life principle. Take to give. When the heavenly benefactor ceases to give to us, then we may be excused, for we shall have nothing to bestow. When God stops giving to you, you have an excuse to not give anything else. Well, you won't exist, and you won't be able to exist, and you won't have anything to give, and so there's nothing to give. But as long as He gives, and He continually gives, you have a responsibility to take that and to give it. To every true believer, God imparts light and blessing. And this the believer imparts to others in the work that he does for the Lord. As he gives of that which he receives, his capacity for receiving is increased. Room is made for fresh supplies of grace and truth. Clearer light, increased knowledge are his. On this giving and receiving depend the life and growth, not just of the person, but of the church. He who receives but never gives soon ceases to receive. If the truth does not flow from him to others, he loses his capacity to receive. We must impart the goods of heaven if we would receive fresh blessings. That's true. At the beginning, when you come to God, you take a little bit, and you only have a little bit to give. It's like a coffee straw. But over time, the capacity as you come to if you give more, you can take more. And if you take more, you can give more. And if you give more, you can take more. And if you take more, you can give more. And so it goes from a coffee straw to a regular straw. And then it goes to a hose. And then it goes to a fire hose. And then it goes to a little rivulet. And then to a little creek. And then it goes to a bigger creek. And then it's a river. And over time. Now, if I see myself as the owner, or if I see myself as a steward, it's because of my identity. The ownership or the stewardship comes out of what I believe about myself. You do what you do because you are what you are. You do what you do because you are what you are. You are not what you are because of what you do. So, it's identity that drives behavior. It's not behavior that defines identity. So if you behave like an owner, that is because you already believe something about yourself. And if you behave like a steward, that also is because you already believe something about yourself. Your identity drives you either being an owner or being a steward. So, if you're an owner, who do you believe you are? And if you're a steward, who do you believe you are? Well, according to the law, we all function as channels, taking and giving. We are not the source, God is the source. And we function by using something that's not ours. We're taking it from one place, it wasn't ours, and we're giving it to another place, which isn't ours, and we're just passing it along. We are not the owner of anything. We are stewards of God's resources. He is the owner, and we are accountable to God for our stewardship. So, if I'm a steward, I recognize I'm a child of God. But if I'm an owner, what does that look like? What does it look like to be an owner. When I take ownership of something, I do so because I believe something about myself. I believe I am a God, because it's a God that creates and a God that owns. And I belong to me. Now, I'm not saying that God is the way that I'm going to describe. I'm saying that when I, who am a creature, believe that I am a God, I get things really messed up. And this is how it gets messed up. I see, as I am a God, that I belong to me. Sorry. I believe that I am a God, and as a God, I belong to me. Therefore, I am my own. And I can choose what to do, what I do, without reference to anyone else and anybody else's needs. I am accountable to no one but myself. And what others say and do in my direction, well, I take it as being said and done to me. I take it personal. And if I have a gift and a loved one and I want to give them that gift and it's, it's an expensive gift and I spend a lot of money and time on it and I hand them the gift and they take it and they throw it on the ground, they stomp on it. How do I feel? Well, as an owner, I'm not going to feel very good. I'm going to feel maybe angry, hurt, crushed, rejected, misunderstood, devastated, whatever it might be. Because that was my present. It was purchased with my money. It represented my love, and that was my loved one. Right? And so I was the owner. And because I was the owner of that thing, how it was treated, I took it as if it was about me. Now, others, if I am a God and if I am the owner, others are accountable to me. Others are there to minister to my wants, to minister to my needs. They are my servants. And resources are used to minister to my wants and my needs. They are my resources. And when something doesn't go well, I take it as my problem. And now I have to fix it. I have to somehow bring it to a successful conclusion in order for it to work out well. And in order to do so, well, there's possessions, and there's people, and there's environment, and there are resources and circumstances and time and space and information. There's all these various different things that are outside of me. And in order to make my thing come out successfully, I have to try to control all of these things outside of me. And they are like fires that are threatening to burn, threatening to destroy. And if I can only control the possessions, if I can only control the resources, if I can only control the time and circumstances and so on, then, I'm okay. I'm comfortable. And my measure of success is comfort. Right? Security. But how many of those things can I control? No, sorry, not happening. And when I can't control what I think I need to control, the result is stress. So I have stress as a result. Now, as a God, I believe that things belong to me. And so now I'm the owner. Right? And if they're mine and they are damaged and injured, if they're destroyed, if they're killed, or when they die and they leave me, then I see myself at loss personally. I lost what was mine. When the house burns down, it was my house, and that was my loss. And now I am homeless, and now I don't know what to do. And when my spouse leaves me, now I am alone. And I no longer have that relationship. And that relationship was for me. And now I don't have it for me anymore. And so I am at loss. And when the accident happens and the spinal cord is severed, and now I am paralyzed, and I cannot move my fingers and my toes and my hands and my feet and my arms and my legs and my body, I only have my head. Then that was my body, that was my spinal cord, those were my capabilities and qualities, and I have lost them, and now I am at loss. And mother dies, and she's no longer there to give me advice. She's no longer there for me to talk to. She's no longer there, and I am at loss. Okay. So as an owner, I am always insecure. I'm always trying to protect myself and to prevent loss. I'm always trying to control people. I'm trying to control resources and money and so on, and circumstances and all of these different things. And I believe that things should be mine until I choose to give them up. The possessions should remain in my possession until I choose that they go, not when the thief chooses they go. I believe that the resources should be mine as long as I think that they should be mine, not when the rust comes and destroys it. And I think that the relationships should remain mine as long as I think they should be mine until I'm ready to let them go, not when they're ready to go. And no one else has a say when it should no longer be mine. And I am free to give something up when I decide that it should go. I am okay with a relationship coming to an end when I'm the one deciding it should end. And I'm okay with a car no longer being mine when I let go of the car. And I'm okay with a capacity and whatever being gone when I think, I don't need that anymore. But if somebody else decides, somebody else chooses, it happens some other way, I'm not so good with that. And when I make the decision that something can go, I make that decision in reference to what I believe is best for me. I'm always thinking of me. And in order to give it up, whether it's a possession or a relationship or other things like that, then I either must believe that holding on to it is a loss, or that when I give it up, I'm going to receive something greater. And so I make those decisions from that standpoint. And I give for the sake of personal gain. And now I use gifts to obligate others to myself. Right? You owe me because I've done this, or I have given this. Gifts then become a tool to manipulate and to control others. I will just say a relative. Let me put it that way, because this will be somewhere that some people might see and hear and whatever. So there was a certain relative of mine that decided that it was time for our children, to have bicycles. Now, they had bicycles, but the bicycles were old and sometimes heavy and rusty and, and whatever. And they decided that it was time for the bicycles to be, for them to have new bicycles. And so this relative purchased new bicycles over a period of time for each of the children. And, of course, the children were grateful for that. And, children did what children did. This particular individual wanted the bicycles to be well organized when they were done, and so there was an overhead porch. It was a 2-story house, and there was a porch coming out of the second floor, and so under the floor there was space under that, including the air conditioning unit and everything like that. But there wasn't a lot of space under there, and so they had put these eye hooks, or kind of a half eye hook, that they had screwed up into the wood so that you could take the bike and you could put the wheel through the hook and you could hang it there and it would be nice and organized. Well, that's not a bad idea for an adult. But trying to get a child to lift a heavy bike and get it up there and put it on the hooks and so on, it's not happening. It's just not happening. All right, the older children, they had struggled with it, and the younger ones, it's just impossible. Well, anyways, the bicycles did what bicycles did, or the children did what children did, and that is bicycles are laying all over the place. And so this particular individual was frustrated that they're laying all over the place and weren't going where they were going to go, and so they threatened, I'm going to take all of the bicycles away. They're not treating them well, and so I'm going to just take them. And so I confronted them, and I said, did you not give the bicycles to the children? And they said, yes. And I said, then the bicycles belong to the children, not you. So if you are going to take them, then you're a thief, and you will be stealing. We don't usually think of it in those terms because we give gifts with strings attached. And we always do that. And so we still think of it as our own, even though we have given it to somebody else, and sometime I can use that in order to control or manipulate others. Now, we do this to God as well. We try to obligate God to do good for us by doing good to God or doing good to others, or by going to church and paying tithe and reading our Bibles and doing all that kind of stuff. And if we only do enough good, then God is obligated to do good to us. And as the owner, I'm the greater God, and I'm trying to control what God does. And He's the lesser God to do my bidding. It's a problem. It's definitely a problem. Human love, in our human situation, we give from ourselves. We think we do. We think it's coming from us. But we give for the purpose of receiving, so it's an investment. We put something of value in somebody else, but we're looking for something of greater value back for ourselves. So the purpose of the giving is the receiving. So the giving is not for you, even though it's to you. The giving is for me because I'm looking for the return from it. You've heard the phrase, no strings attached. Well, there's no such thing as no strings attached. In human love, there are always strings attached. Always. Let's say that you have a neighbor that moves into the neighborhood, and you've never met him before. We'll call him Frank. And Frank moves into the neighborhood, and he comes up and he knocks on the door. And you open the door, and he introduces himself. He tells you that he's, where he's from, and that he's moved here to the neighborhood, and he's just getting to know the neighbors, and some small chit chat and whatever. And then he hands you a $20 bill, and he says, "Here, use this for whatever you want." And then he walks away. Well, what do you think of Frank? Now, some of you are thinking, "Well, that's a nice neighbor," and others are thinking, "What's up?" Now, Frank comes to your door for the first time. You've never met him before. He knocks on the door. He introduces himself. He, tells where he's from, moved into the neighborhood, meeting the neighbors, some chit-chat and whatever. And he hands you a suitcase and he says, "Here, use this for whatever you want." And he walks away. And you open the suitcase and it's full of money. Full of money. Just packed full of money. It falls out when you unzip it. Now what are you thinking of Frank? You really like him? Oh, is it a really great neighbor? I'm so glad he moved in next to us. Or are you going, "Whoa, this is trouble"? If you were given the option of receiving the $20 or the suitcase full of money, which one would you take? And why? I was just presenting this a few days ago for the sermon, and some people said, I wouldn't take either. Some people said, I'll take the $20, and other people said, I'll take the suitcase. So there's all sorts of answers, but there's a reason for every answer. Oftentimes, it has to do with the past experiences that you've had and how things have gone with presence in the past. And whether you have been obligated, but everybody uses gifts to control others. And the bigger the gift, the bigger the strings. And sometimes we are very afraid of the bigger gifts because we know they come with bigger strings attached. And we do the same thing with God. We're okay with accepting the littler gifts. But when it comes to the big gifts, we're afraid to accept them. In fact, oftentimes we resist accepting them because we think God is like other people. We think He's like us. The Bible says, "You think I am altogether such a one as you are." It's not true. He says, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways," says the Lord. Right? As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. No, God does not think like us. He does not give with strings attached. And the bigger gifts do not come with bigger strings. But we think they do, and we're reluctant to accept the bigger gifts. Now, how much do you need from your investment? It simply depends upon your expectations. High expectations, then you need high returns. Low expectations, then you need low returns. Now, as an owner, I fear the needs of others. I do. Because I believe their needs are going to drain my resources. And so for the sake of retaining my resources, I make excuses for not supplying what they need. And as I repeat the excuses, I believe the excuses more and more. And the next time, it's easier to excuse myself. And selfishness grows with exercise. Proverbs 11:24 and 25 says, "There is one who scatters, yet increases more. And there is one who withholds more than is right, but it leads to poverty. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself." So the Bible is telling us, if you are generous, you will receive more. It's just like the other passage we saw. The more you give, the more capacity you have to receive. And the more you receive, then the more capacity you have to give, and so on. And it just feeds on itself. But if you withhold, you lose the capacity. 2 Corinthians 9 and verses 6 and 7, "But this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. So let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not grudgingly of a necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver." You don't give because you have to. You give because you get to. You see, the kingdom of God is not a bunch of have-tos. The kingdom of God is a bunch of get-tos. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You get to do this. You get to do that. You get to do that. And when you have the right connection and you have the right information, you will do this, and you will do that, and you will do the other, and you will enjoy it, and you will do it willingly. But often we look at it from the other standpoint of the have-tos, have-tos, have-tos. If riches increase, men, even those professing godliness, set their hearts upon them, and the more they have, the less they give to the treasury of the Lord. Thus riches make men selfish, and hoarding feeds covetousness, and these evils strengthen by active exercise. So watch out. It tends to be that the one who has more gives less. Maybe not in overall dollar amount, but remember the widow with her 2 mites. How many rich people are willing to give everything? But you have the widow with her 2 mites. She gave everything. Right? So the percentage of what somebody who is poor will give is much higher than somebody who is rich. And God does not consider the amount per se, but the sacrifice that comes along with the giving. Right? Is it out of love? Then it will truly be sacrificial. Like in the early church when people were selling their homes, selling their properties, giving everything to the disciples for the cause so that those who were poor could have more, and so on. It was true sacrifice, and it was from true love. However large, however small the possessions of any individual, let him remember that it is his only entrust. For his strength, skill, time, talents, opportunities, and means, he must render an account to God. This is an individual work. God gives to us that we may become like him, generous, noble, beneficent, by giving to others. Again, the law of life. He gives and we take, and then we give. Those who, forgetful of their divine mission, seek only to save or spend in the indulgence of pride or selfishness, may secure the gains and pleasures of this world, but in God's sight, estimated by their spiritual attainments, they are poor, wretched, miserable, blind, naked. Yeah, this is how we are. So as an owner, I think that money belongs to me. And I can do more with more money, so I want to have more money. And the more money I have, the more I do for myself, because the money is mine and it's for me. And so therefore, I attempt to accumulate more and more money so that I can do greater and greater things for myself. And I think that money brings security, so I want more money because I want more security, but I'm insecure, fearing that I will lose the money. And the more money I have, the more insecurity I actually have in relation to the fear of losing the money that I have. Deuteronomy 8 in verses 17 and 18 says, "Then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember that the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. And there are only two places in the universe where we can place our treasures: in God's storehouse or in Satan's. And all that is not devoted to God's service is counted on Satan's side and goes to strengthen his cause. So we must truly question, where are the resources? Are we having the resources on God's side, or are the resources on Satan's side? And you might think, well, I'm holding on to these resources because I have some good plans for way off in the future. Well, you don't have way off in the future. And there are needs now. So consider the needs that are now and God's ability to supply for your needs in the future. As the owner of relationships, this is an important one, pay attention. As the owner of relationships, I take responsibility for each relationship that I am in. And we might think of that, and we might say, well, of course, shouldn't we take responsibility for the relationship? Well, no. Since relationships involve two people, when I take responsibility for the relationship, then I take responsibility for the other person as well. And now, to assure that the relationship is successful, now I have to somehow control the other person and make sure that they behave in a way that assures that the relationship is successful. So now I have stepped out of my sphere of action into their sphere of action. When they don't behave well, I have to fix them, because the outcome of the relationship I see as my responsibility, and their behavior is a significant part of the outcome of this relationship. So I take responsibility of their behavior. I make them accountable to me, or at least I think they're accountable to me. And now I try to control their behavior and so on. And to fix them, I have to intrude upon their sphere of action, what they think and what they believe and what they choose. And the result is always conflict. It's always conflict. Anytime you get out of your sphere of action into somebody else's sphere of action, it's always going to be conflict. And if I believe that the other person, cannot be fixed, then I have to cut off the relationship, and I need to disassociate myself from them because now they're toxic. Have you ever heard the term toxic people? Yeah? Toxic people? Everybody's talking about toxic people. Oh, and how you need to cut yourself off from toxic people. If somebody around you is toxic and you have a problem with it, it's only because you were eating their poison. And that's your problem. Okay? Somebody around you is toxic and you're poisoned by it. It's because you ate their poison, and you eating their poison is your problem. Now, burnout is the result of giving from what you believe are your own resources. Again, you're the owner. You're the creator. You're giving from yourself. And so, as a hose, but if the hose thinks it's the well, right? If it thinks it's the aquifer or the place where water comes from, if the hose thinks it's the well, it's going to find out, and it runs out really quick. And so you cannot be the steward, in other words, taking from God and filling up from what he has, and taking from him what you need, and then giving to others from the fullness that you have from him. You cannot be a steward and experience burnout, because God is a constant source. He is an abundant source. He is an infinite source, and you're never going to have an insufficient or an unreliable or unavailable supply. So you always have what you need, and you can always give what you need, so you will not burn out as long as you are connected with God. But if you experience burnout, that is clear, there's a disconnection. There's a disconnection. So long as the soul is united to Christ, there is no danger that it will wither or decay. So these are some thoughts on ownership. What about stewardship? Well, let's look at stewardship. It's beautiful. That picture is just cute. Colossians 3:23 and 24. And whatever you do, do it heartily, right? From the heart, with all you got, as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. I praise God, I learned this lesson when I was younger. And so as I started working, and I was about 13 when I started working out of the home, and then 15, a bit more, and I was working at the academy that I went to, the high school. And I started at grounds, in the grounds department, and I had that thought, I'm not mowing this lawn for the academy, I'm mowing this lawn for God. And so I mowed, and I did so faithfully, and I would, keep going until the time was done, and sometimes they'd have to find me and bring me back in because the time was over, and I'm still mowing, and I'm still doing this. And it wasn't long before I was progressing on, and I was the student that they would allow to drive the tractor. And then things kind of continued to progress from there, and eventually I was the highest paid student in the academy. And then I got a job outside of there, and I was making almost 3 times what I was making at the academy, and so on. But and then at that other job, I was working as fast and as efficiently as I could in anything that I was doing, and trying to do it with excellence because I was working for God and not for men. Now, I'm not perfect, and I wasn't perfect, and you can ask anybody around me that I'm not perfect and I wasn't perfect, but at least I had that mindset, and that mindset helped. Right? It helped along the way. We're told that which lies at the foundation of business integrity and of true success is the recognition of God's ownership. The creator of all things, he is the original proprietor. We are his stewards. All that we have is a trust from him to be used according to his direction. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Not only that, we go on, this is an obligation that rests upon every human being. It has to do with the whole sphere of human activity. Whether we recognize it or not, we are stewards, supplied from God with talents and facilities and placed in the world to do a work appointed by him. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, when I take stewardship of something, I do so because I believe something about myself. What do I believe about myself? Well, I believe that I am a child of God. I'm not a God, I'm his child. I belong to him, and therefore I am not my own. And if I am not my own, then what I do in reference to God and his desires and his plans for my life and for the lives of others, right? And I recognize that I am accountable to God and God alone for what I do. Romans 14:12, so each of us shall give account of himself to who? To God. That's right. Luke 12:48, everyone to whom much is given, from him much will be required. And to whom much has been committed, of him they will ask the more. So what others say and do in my direction, I don't take it as being done to me. I don't take it personally. I recognize that it's about them because it couldn't come out of them if it wasn't in them. And I function as the delivery person. I'm taking God's packages of love, his packages of mercy, his packages of truth and honesty and acceptance and belonging and harmony and security and so on. And I'm taking those packages from God and I'm delivering it to the other person. And if they take it and they throw it on the ground and they stomp on it, it's not about me. It's about them and what's in their heart. And it's against God because the present or the gift came from him. So it's not mine. The present isn't mine, the money isn't mine, the love isn't mine, and the loved one isn't mine. They all belong to God. I'm just the steward. And so as the steward, I don't take things personally. I don't get personally hurt by it. Now, to the degree to which I love the individual that stomps on the present is the degree to which I hurt for them. And yes, I feel the hurt, but the hurt is not for me. It's for them. And others are not accountable to me, they are accountable to God. And I minister to their needs. I see myself as their servant, and resources are used by me to minister to the wants and needs of others. Those are God's resources, and they are for the benefit of others, and I just get the pleasure of taking it and giving it, like when you have the card and you can go to the store and you can get anything you want for free, but you do so that you can help and benefit others. Yeah. And you have purpose and meaning and joy in the taking and the giving. Now, when something doesn't go well, I recognize that it is God's problem. When things don't go well, it's God's problem. And He's the one that has to fix it. And He is the one that has to bring it to some successful conclusion. And He is the one that can control all of those things. He can control time and circumstances and space and environment and information and resources and possessions. He can control all of those various different things, and He can guarantee that it comes about successfully. And as His steward, my role in the problem is simply, oh Lord, what do you need me to do to cooperate with you as you're fixing the problem? What do you need me to do to cooperate with you? And I trust Him to work it out in His time and in His way. So I have peace in the midst of the process. For example, let's say that one day you go driving to the store, and when you go driving to the store, you park and you go in and you get the goods that you're shopping for, and you come back out and the car is missing. Well, who has a problem? Well, you do, right? Because that was your car, and it's missing, and now you have the problem. And who has to fix it now? Well, you have to fix it. You have to figure out what to do, and so on and so forth. But what if you went driving to the store in God's car? And you went shopping with God's money, and you bought God's goods, and you come out and you realize that God's car is missing. Well, who has a problem now? Well, God has a problem, because it was His car. Does He know where it is? Sure, He knows where it is. Does He know who took it? Yes, He knows who took it. Did He give them power and life and capabilities and so on while they were in the process of taking it? Yes, He did. And did God already know it would happen long ago? Yes, He did. And does He have a plan for how to take care of it now? Yes, He does. Do you know what that plan is? No, you don't. And that's our problem. Is when we're in the midst of the situation and we don't know how God plans to fix it yet. That's where faith must come in, and where it must act in that, okay, Lord, it's your car, it's your problem, you're going to figure it out. You've already figured it out, I think, and simply, all right, what do you want me to do now? And yes, it may involve, calling the police, filling out a report, calling the insurance company and other things of that nature. There's a number of things that you're going to do as the steward in that situation. But the problem is not yours. And the degree to which you trust God in the midst of the problem is the degree to which you have peace when you still don't have the answer yet. Right? So as a child of God, I know that things belong to Him. They belong to Him. And if they're damaged, if they're injured, if they're destroyed, if they're killed, when they die, when they leave me, it's not my loss. They weren't mine, right? I'm not personally at loss with those things. If anyone loses anything, it is God, because God is the owner of everything. The only one that can lose is Him. So if the house burns down, it's not my house. It's God's house. And did God know the fire would come? Yes, He did. And did He have a way of working that out? Yes, He does. Do I know what that way is yet? Maybe I don't. But the degree to which I trust Him is the degree to which I have peace in the midst of the process, because that was not my house. God simply let me be a steward of that house, and apparently the time of the stewardship is over. And when I'm a steward, I'm not the one that decides when the stewardship is over. God does. And I'm okay with that because he's the owner. And if my spouse leaves me, I'm not alone because God is with me. And he will never leave me nor forsake me. And he loves me with an everlasting love. Therefore, with loving kindness, he has drawn me. And so I have the comfort of God's presence, and I know that he is mine, and he is my spouse. And he has everything that I need. No, that relationship is no longer there for me to give to from what I have taken from God. And yes, there is a missing of that on the giving side. And when it's on the giving side, it doesn't harm you, doesn't destroy you. It's only when it's on the taking side, if you lose your source, that's when it destroys you. It doesn't destroy you when you lose what you're giving to. And if you have that injury and the spinal cord is severed, it was God's spinal cord, not yours. It was God's arms, God's hands, God's toes, God's fingers, God's legs, God's capabilities. And now he's missing those capabilities, not you. It was his body, not yours. But you still have a mind, and you still have some capabilities. And God can use those in wonderful ways. And so as you're still alive, you look up to God. Well, it's probably easy because you're laying in bed, and you look straight to God. And you say, okay, what now? You lost these capabilities and these qualities, can't do the same things that I could before, but I'm still alive, and so you've got something for me still. What now? What would you have me to do now? And when mom dies, well, that chapter is over. No, you don't have the opportunity of giving to her anymore, but you weren't taking from her because she wasn't your own. You were taking from God, and you were filling up with what God had, and you were giving that then to her. And now you don't have her to give to, but God will make sure you have others to give to as well. But you still have God. We're told that money is not ours. Houses and grounds, pictures and furniture, garments and luxuries do not belong to us. We are pilgrims. We are strangers. And we have only a grant of those things that are necessary for health and life. Our temporal blessings are given us in trust to prove whether we can be entrusted with eternal riches. If we endure the proving of God, then we shall receive that purchased possession which is to be our own, glory, honor, and immortality. So as a steward, I am always secure knowing that God is the one that's in control, and he will work things out for my best good and for the best good of others. So I have that security. And I believe things are in my stewardship until God determines that the stewardship is over. If the possession, I have a possession, I'm simply stewarding it for the moment. If there are resources or capabilities, I am stewarding those resources and capabilities for the moment. If there are relationships, I am stewarding those relationships for the moment, but they don't belong to me, and God is the one who decides when it's no longer mine. And of course, if it involves other people have self-government, and they have freedom to decide when they're done. And God allows that as well. And so then that stewardship is over. And I'm only free to give something up when God indicates that it's time for the stewardship to end. Sometimes we think that if I'm a steward and nothing belongs to me, then if anybody comes and asks for something, then I have every obligation to give it to them. Well, no, that's not how it is. I remember I was presenting it that way in the past, and and you know that as a steward, nothing belongs to me, and so everything belongs to God, and it's okay to lose anything. And so a guy came up to me and says, "Okay, I want your computer." And, you know, that's good. It made me think and, you know, to kind of flesh things out so that it's, you know, it's a bit broader and whatever. But no, God gave that computer to me to steward, right? To use it to bless others and to help them and to communicate and to present and other things of that nature. And if somebody asks for the computer, yes, okay. But I need to go to God first and say, okay, God, is the time for the stewardship up? If it is, sure, you can have it. If it's not, no, you can't have it. But if the thief comes and steals it and there's no more computer, well, God said it's over, right? Because he allowed that to happen. And in allowing it to happen, clearly the stewardship of that particular computer has come to an end. And okay, it wasn't mine. I was using it for God's work, and God will figure out a way for me to have something else so that I can use in his work. So the decision is that God's decision in regards to what should be mine or shouldn't be mine is made in reference to God's plan, not my plan. And his will I see as my gain, regardless of the status of my stewardship at the moment. And so if I have lots of things to steward, that's gain. If I have a few things to steward, that's gain, because it's God's will at the moment. And I take from God for the purpose of giving to others, and no one is obligated to me because of what I give. I'm giving what came from him. And gifts are for the benefit of others. They're not for my benefit, and they don't come with strings attached. And I'm dependent upon God for anything good that I have and anything good that I can give, and I give to others recognizing that no good ever came from me. And as a steward, I recognize God is God, and he directs my life. And I'm happy doing his bidding. When you're born, how much do you bring into the world with you? Nothing. You're born naked. And when you die, how much are you going to take away? Nothing. You die naked. When you're born, yeah, parents might be around, but you're not taking them with you when you die. You didn't have a spouse when you were born, and you might not take them with you when you die. You have children that come at some point, and they might be around when you die, but you're not taking them with you when you die. You have a car for a time, a house for a time, a career for a time, wisdom for a time, strength for the time. Strength tends to come before wisdom and then goes before wisdom goes. And all of these are temporary. And all of this is our stewardship. And God gives us our stewardship for a time, right? For a time. And it's okay for it to be temporary. Now, that's in this life, in the context of sin and death and so on. Every stewardship that we have has a beginning and an end. And Job recognized the true purpose, the true issue. Naked I came into this world. When I was born, I had nothing. And naked shall I return. When I die, I'm not taking anything with me. The Lord gave. I have it because the Lord gave it to me. And the Lord has taken away. It's time for the stewardship to end. Blessed be the name of the Lord. How blessed be the name of the Lord? Because I didn't have it at the beginning. I wouldn't have it at the end. He gave it to me for a time. Thank you, God, for the time you gave me that stewardship. Thank you. And as a steward, I never fear the needs of others. God gives to me so that I can give to them. And I have nothing of my own, so I don't make any excuses to get out of giving. My life, my purpose, and joy come from taking in order to give. And the more I can take and give, the better it is. So the capacity of generosity and benevolence and beneficence is increased as they are exercised. We're told that God is not dependent upon men for the advancement of his cause. And he might have made the angels the ambassadors of his truth. He might have made known his will as he proclaimed the law from Sinai with his own voice. But in order to cultivate a spirit of benevolence in us, he has chosen to employ men to do this work. So he's given it to us to do this work of benevolence, of giving and sharing with others. And that benevolence is to grow us in God. As a steward, I recognize that money belongs to God, not to me. And I am faithful with the money, and God gives me the stewardship, understanding that God's priorities, and I do so understanding his priorities, and using his money for what is most important. Right? And I see money as a means to help others and to further God's cause on the earth, and my security is God, not the money. So I don't fear running out of money because God is my provider. He's my provider. Malachi 3:10, bring all the tithes into the storehouse that there may be food in my house, and try me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open to you the windows of heaven and pour out to you a blessing that there will be not room enough to fill. Right? So as the stewardship also of relationships, I take responsibility for my side of every relationship. I never take responsibility for what the other person in that relationship says or does. And as the relationship involves two people, I never take responsibility for the success of the relationship because I can't control the thoughts. I can't control the words and the actions and the reactions of the other person. And I only take responsibility for what I think, what I say, and what I do. And when others don't behave well, I feel sorry for them, but I have no reason to try to control them because they're free however they are. And if they continue to behave badly, I continue to feel sorry for them, but I don't try to control them. I have no reason to cut off the relationship and disassociate myself from them or from the problem because I know the problem is theirs, not mine. And I can continue to love, care, listen, and respect. And this is being a steward.